Big news coming from the United Conservative Caucus last night. MLA for Strathmore Brooks and former finance critic Derek Fildebrandt has resigned amidst two expense claim scandals and what the media party are headlining with what they're calling a hit and run. So let's clarify some of this stuff because it's a mess and the United Conservative Party is just a big dumpster fire over some of this. The NDP actually should be too, but nobody is talking about their indiscretions. More on that in a bit. For one, the mainstream media is trying to paint this like Fildebrandt crazily hit someone and took off from the scene of an accident by pushing out some really disingenuous headlines with this hit and run thing as the punchline, and really, it's a bit gross. Apparently, he bumped a parked vehicle in his condo complex and drove away. It was wrong to leave the scene, but let's not pretend this was vehicular manslaughter or something, okay? He pled not guilty and will appear in court later this year. Now, I told you about his accommodations expenses and making money off of his Edmonton apartment by posting it on Airbnb. In fact, people started digging into other expenses and found Fildebrandt double claiming meals too, which is where that second issue is coming in. So what's new about this is that it's surfacing that his now former colleague, MLA Jason Nixon, was sharing those accommodations with him. It's pretty hard to justify for sharing a small apartment that you use for only part of the year. I told you that this was going to not be just a Derek Fildebrandt problem, but a government-wide problem. And now all sorts of politicians are being outed for maxing out expenses, sharing accommodations, and abusing taxpayer dollars. Of course, nobody is talking about the NDP's abuse of Albertans' money over the exact same things, though, but the media already seems to be in campaign mode against the UCP, so that's really no big surprise. Here, Emma Graney, who covers the legislature, writes for the Edmonton Journal, and who also seems to cover conservative controversies far more than she criticizes the NDP, buries that information at the end of her article where she shows that NDP MLAs who claimed a total of $34,000 in accommodations expenses are sharing living spaces. Again, hard to justify. I told you this is happening on both sides of the aisle, so where's the outrage over the NDP participating in the exact same kind of garbage behavior? I also told you that I was going to get in touch with the Legislative Assembly's office, and I asked them about how often these MLAs are being audited. They told me once a year. So clearly they're not being stringent enough, or else this wouldn't be happening at all. Now, one other thing to address is that Derek Fildebrandt himself has hinted that all of these scandals being uncovered might be payback from Brian Jean's campaign for him being vocal about not supporting the former leader of the Wildrose Party in the UCP leadership race. And it's really not that hard to believe considering the timing and circumstances. Some of this stuff is over a year old and whoever is airing it has been sitting on it. I don't like to get into insider party politics. I told you last week that I don't even have a dog in this fight and I don't even have a membership to vote. But this has been made public, so I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. I can be a conservative with libertarian sympathies and not belong to any party. So here's my take. If this is true, it's backfiring, okay? If this is true, it was a lousy move and it could have been aired way sooner and not to score political points and drive the party into the ditch because you're mad that someone won't kiss your ring. If it was meant to target Fildebrandt, it's spreading like a cancer through the entire party. You've got Jason Nixon affected now. You have several other UCP MLAs affected now when you should have been doing your job, standing united like the memberships voted on for you to do, and acting as the official opposition by holding the NDP to account. The job of the UCP is not to be its own political enemy, and I can think of 1,000 better issues to go after when it comes to NDP incompetence. This is dirty politics, and now it's left a black mark on the entire party, and they're open to NDP attacks. This is not me saying I agree with abuse of taxpayer dollars. I see it as my job to hold all of these politicians, including conservatives, to account for that. Even Derek Fildebrandt. Don't waste our money. And another thing, the public has the right to know this is going on, so I don't think it should be hidden either. I think Derek Fildebrandt did the right thing in stepping down. His future with the party is uncertain, but interim leader Nathan Cooper has said if he pulls up his socks, he has a chance to fit back in. What he did was wrong, but members and voters will ultimately have to decide his fate in the long run if he's the chosen candidate to campaign next election. But there's a flip side to this coin too. We have conservatives attacking conservatives, and it's a lot of the same old. We could say this is all brand new because of the unification, but it's just not. If you want to start fresh, changes need to be made, and having principles always wins. The good news is that the United Conservatives have a couple of years to get their act together. They can do this by ridding themselves of the unprincipled behavior and troublemakers that affect the entire party without thinking about how it will affect everyone else and the conservative movement with infighting and old battles that should have died long ago. Because if they don't, they'll be handing the next election right over to the NDP. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas. Thanks for watching. Have you heard that YouTube is cracking down on content that they think is controversial? That could mean absolutely anything, and it could mean it affects us over here at the Rebel. So we want to build a conservative alternative. If you can help us out, visit theycan'tstopus.ca for all of the details.